Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jennifer Sullivan, and I am the Principal Advisor of J. Sullivan Advisors. Thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate you giving us your precious time. Our hope with this Brain Break series is to give you a chance in your day when you can just slow down. Stop taking care of other people or things, sit back in your chair, relax, and hopefully learn a little something new. We have a phenomenal speaker on tap today, and I cannot wait to introduce you to her. And let me first tell you a little bit about J. Sullivan Advisors. We are a boutique hospitality consultancy offering complete event management services to meeting professionals. We can do total event planning and execution or pieces of meeting planning, from sourcing to site inspections to contract negotiations to building registration sites and providing on-site staffing. I had the pleasure of attending the Incentive Research Foundation's annual meeting last week, and the resounding feedback was that face-to-face meetings are back in full force, which is just music to so many of our ears. In fact, there's so much pent-up demand that the hot topic this year is compression. There's not enough availability for programs. And the second hot topic that was discussed last week was a staffing crisis. And that's really where we can come in and help supplement or support your teams. As I said, we can do pieces of a program or the entire thing if you are short-staffed or running into that the staffing crisis. I think there are two main things that make J. Sullivan Advisors different than other incentive houses or meeting planning companies. Like independent planners, we are low overhead, but high touch. However, we're a team. So if something were to happen to your lead planner, there are 6 of us standing behind her. We work collaboratively on all events, so you've got the peace of mind and assurance of always having someone available, regardless of illness, injury, or anything unexpected. The second thing that makes us special is the dynamic makeup of our team. And this is where I will share a picture with you because some of these faces probably look familiar. We are a mix of seasoned and savvy meeting professionals: Sharon Chapman, formerly with Guardian; Jana Stern, formerly with Voya; and Tonine McGarvey, formerly with BMW Mini. We also have very seasoned and experienced luxury hoteliers with Kelly Wood-Stalmer, Michelle Babin, Joanne Peart, and myself. We bring our different backgrounds and perspectives to every project we work on, making your program that much stronger. Collectively, we are strategists, we are relationship builders, and we are magic makers. We are passionate about travel. We're passionate about building loyalty through events, and we're passionate about serving other people, be it your stakeholders or your attendees or you. And we would certainly love to put all of our passions and experience to work for you. So I will reach out in the next week by email and get in touch and see if we can set up a time to talk more about your meetings and see where we may be of service. So again, thank you for joining us. And now, the real reason why y'all are here, if I can ask Michelle to turn on her camera, it is my pleasure to introduce to you Michele Rigby Assad. Michelle joined the CIA in January of 2002, sorry, I'm getting my numbers dyslexic, along with her husband, and they spent 10 years working as undercover intelligence officers. Michelle specialized in counterterrorism and counterintelligence while working in Iraq and other secret locations throughout the Middle East. And bear in mind, this is right after 9/11. So to date, Michelle has lived in 6 different countries in the Near East and traveled to over 50 other locations. Today, Michelle is a security consultant and an author. Her first book was just released in 2018, and it's called Breaking Cover. And in addition to that, Michelle is a public speaker. So she is available if you're looking for a phenomenal speaker for your upcoming events. She and I were connected through Diane Goodman, who's been in the meetings and incentive business for years, doing exactly this, connecting phenomenal speakers with companies looking for something different for their meetings. So a huge thank you to Diane for bringing us together and for making this happen today. And I am so excited for Michele to tell you her story. I know for you, it'll probably bring up tons of questions as it did for me. So go ahead and put them in the chat throughout her presentation, and she will answer questions at the end. So without further ado, Michele, welcome.
Thanks so much, Jennifer. I really love what you're doing. And I know I asked you this earlier if you'd ever read the book, The Medici Effect from 2006.
I'm going to add it to my list.
Yes, because what you're doing with this brain break is so brilliant. You're giving people a chance to get outside of their normal. And what the Medici Effect book is all about is showing how breakthrough ideas occur when we bring concepts from one field into new and unfamiliar territory. So they say if you want to stimulate creativity and stimulate innovative thinking, give your brain a break and go think about or learn about something completely different. So that's why we're going to talk about really cool experiences I've had from the CIA today. You're not going to think about your regular job for the next few minutes. We're going to take a wild ride into a little bit of my world. And I think what's fascinating about this is I'm not going to be talking about concepts that are completely new. We're going to talk about empathy and the importance of connectedness if you're doing marketing or sales or the business of all sorts. That's nothing new. Neither is the idea of getting out of your comfort zone. We hear about these things all the time. But in the context of the CIA, it takes it and kind of, I don't know, repackages it for you in a really unique way. So that's what I'm going to do today. And so let me set the stage for you. I was trained, I went through Tradecraft Training in the CIA in 2002, just a couple months after 9/11. So I had already been in the background investigation, the whole process of getting into the CIA, which is not easy. As right before 9/11. So as 9/11 is occurring, I know I'm about to enter the CIA to become a counterterrorism agent, which was just a really crazy time and a very exciting thought, because I realized like, this is where I'm supposed to be, and this is what I'm supposed to be doing to protect both my country and help protect the world as well. So you go through Tradecraft Training. It's very fascinating because I was told many times that as a female, yeah, we're training you, but we don't actually think you can do the job of dealing with terrorism sources because they're difficult to deal with. So I was really kind of shocked. I thought, well, then why did you hire me? You hired me because I have a background in Arab studies and I've traveled all over the Middle East and I studied abroad. If you don't think I can do this job, why did you just spend hundreds of thousands of dollars training me? So that was very weird, and got through training, was sent to the field along with my husband to be an undercover intelligence officers together. And my local boss there told me the same thing, that he didn't think I was capable either. So writ large, CIA is telling you, because of your gender, you can't do this job. And then your boss is telling you, and you've also been told for a whole year by HR. So there's a lot of voices going around telling you how difficult it's going to be. So I'm setting the stage for you here. So I spend, Joseph, my husband, and I spend a couple of years in a really, really hard location. We leave after 2 years of living, like looking over our shoulder all the time for hostile surveillance. And we go to another beautiful location for almost a year, and then we get surged to Baghdad. And so to say that I was not excited about going to Baghdad is an understatement. Like, I was completely terrified. And I couldn't think of a worse place to be at that point in time, because this was 2006. And the war was so bad, and the sectarian killing, the Sunnis and the Shia, and ethnic cleansing, and all that was going on at that time made it an especially horrific place to be and to work. So one of the themes I'm going to talk about today is like how the unexpected and frankly unwelcome developments, which for me was getting sent surge to Baghdad against my will, can end up being the most transformative moments of your life. It's the weirdest thing. And that's definitely what I found. So I get to Baghdad. I don't want to be there. And then I get the opportunity to actually finally do the thing that I was kept from doing for all these years, which is an operation with a bad guy. So the thing that kind of got me involved was there was the brutal murder of a 27-year-old US citizen, American woman, on the streets of Baghdad right after a meeting she had with local Iraqi political groups. So her job was to go there and to train them on the political process. And she and I think 5 members of her PSD, her security detachment, were brutally murdered by a group of like about 20 terrorists. It was a horrible operation. So we were so busy in Iraq that nobody really had time for an extra project. So I got given the extra project, which again sounds like another one of those unexpected and unwelcome developments that you don't have time for. But it was so exciting for me because when I started talking to these, my fellow officers about the questions that I needed to ask their terrorism sources, like I need to get to the bottom of who ordered this attack, who executed this attack, and to hold them responsible. So I need to collect this intelligence. And so what these officers started saying was, well, nobody knows more about this attack than you do. Why don't you just come in to the operation and the meeting, and why don't you just ask him yourself? And I was like, what? Seriously? I finally get to be in a meeting with a bad guy? It was so exciting because I had been studying terrorism for so long. I'm a student of human behavior. So I'm one of those like true crime junkies. I'm sure I'm not the only one in this group of people who can who would say that. I am fascinated by what makes people tick. And so the idea to get up close and personal and in the same room with terrorists or insurgents, CIA sources, was just an amazing opportunity. So I remember thinking that, as I'm prepared to enter the room and debrief this terrorist for the first time, my heart is racing. I'm sweating. I am shaking out of fear and excitement, both at the same time. And I'm thinking about all I have to accomplish in this meeting. I've got to try to get this intel out of this guy. And to properly set the stage for this, I should tell you that we're going to call him Abu Muhammad. Abu Muhammad was like, he was like a muscly guy, and he was like stocky. He was not like the thinker of the group. He was not the emir of the group. He was the guy in the group they would send to like break people's legs or kill them. He was that guy. But what's fascinating about this very interesting clandestine relationship is you are dealing with human beings who have, for whatever reason, decided to turn on the rest of their group and risk their lives to clandestinely meet with the CIA because they're willing to give us the information we need to stop a terrorist attack from occurring. So it's a fascinating relationship when you think about it. Here are these people that in every other way would hate you and see you as the enemy, but they're deciding to work alongside with you. So before I proceed, I have to ask you questions. I would love for you to get ready to put some stuff into the chat section. So as I'm anticipating about to enter this room, I'm thinking about what Abu Muhammad is going to think of me when I walk through the door. And I'm keenly aware that, because I've spent so much time in the Middle East, what he does think about me and what I'm going to be dealing with here. So I'm not going to be offended by anything that you say, but if you don't mind throwing into the chat section some of your ideas on what a terrorist might think of me based on my gender and appearance. And no, I never offed anyone. I did see that question there. What would, okay, no, yeah, definitely I'm not a threat because I'm a female, a pushover. Oh yeah. They just think that you're like so easy to schmooze and to work over. Unintelligent. Oh, that's the biggest one. They think you're stupid. They think you, in their little terrorist ideology world, they think that you should be home raising children, and you shouldn't even be allowed to leave the home without your face covered, and you shouldn't even leave the home without a male escort. So for them, I might as well be growing like two horns out of my head, because not only am I out of the house, but I'm pretending to work for the CIA. Kathy says a beautiful pushover. Well, thank you, Kathy. But yes, that was predominantly their first thought because they don't see faces very often. It's very exciting for them to be in the room with a woman who's not covered. So yes, easy to intimidate. Yes. Jennifer says not knowledgeable about culture or dynamics. They don't think you have a clue about what's going on in Iraq, what's going on in the Middle East. They don't think you know anything about the dangerous world of espionage or terrorism. I mean, you're just, again, you should be at home dealing with children issues and cooking and cleaning. So I know this, and I know going into the room that this is what he's going to think of me. And my question to you is, do you have any control over what someone thinks of you when you walk in the door? Do you have any control over what's already going on in their head, their assumptions? Absolutely not. You have no control over that. And I realized that, but I thought I have to challenge this, because if I don't challenge these things, then I'm not going to be able to get my job done, because Abu Muhammad, whether I like him or not, he is risking his life to meet with us. So I have to show him that I am worthy of working with, that I am worthy of dealing with. So how am I going to make a connection with Abu Muhammad that's meaningful in a way that's going to help us to click and help us to get this, get the job done here? So what's really fascinating is I had these really interesting experiences in Cairo as a student. And it was how people deal with each other when there's a problem. So it's conflict resolution in the very Egyptian context of that. So fascinating. When there's a fight, when there's a conflict, something happens and it's called a dawsha. And a dawsha is where it literally, these two, let's just say these two individuals are fighting over a seat on the train, because that's what was happening the first time I was introduced to this. And one had a ticket and the other didn't, but there was this big fight over who was going to take this seat on the train. And as an American 18-year-old, I'd never been in an environment where I heard people yelling like this, yelling and screaming in Arabic. And for some reason, that sounds really scary. I don't know why. I didn't know Arabic, and it just sounded very harsh and very like antagonistic and very in your face. And I hate conflict. I hate it so much. And so that moment for me was deeply uncomfortable. And after this fighting and shouting, people from the outside would get involved and try to kind of mend the relationship and see who was wrong. And so it was this very fascinating dynamic of like the outsiders helping the people yelling at each other figure out how to solve the problem. So this dawsha is so fascinating, because at the end of the day, these two people who were arguing over the seat, once they made peace and decided who was going to sit where, they went off into the dining cart and had tea together. And I was like, I thought y'all were just going to kill each other, and now you're having tea? It was like, that's so weird. Fascinating experience though, because as I'm about to deal with Abu Muhammad, a typical American mindset would be to be diplomatic, and diplomacy means being soft, and it means being subtle, and it means all of, taking time to establish your goodwill. Well, I didn't have any of that time, and I knew how a dawsha worked. So I decided I have to hit this nail on the head immediately, and I've got to get this show on the road, and we got to get this done. So I'm going to just approach Abu Muhammad and let him know he's wrong about all these assumptions about me, but in a very clever way. So I knock on the door, I walk in the room, and I confidently, with my shoulders back and my head held high, even though I was terrified and excited, I crossed the room to Abu Muhammad and I gave him a very firm handshake. And I said, Salamu alaikum ya Abu Muhammad, kayfik ya khoya. He looked at me like, the kalam like, you speak Arabic? And I was like, yes. And he was in total shock, right? So I've achieved my first objective just through the greeting. And that was, Abu Muhammad, you don't know who I am. You thought you did when I walked in the door, but now I've already like shocked you. Now, he doesn't know who or what I am, but I'm already something very different, because most Americans, most coalition forces didn't speak Arabic, didn't know anything about the Middle East, didn't know anything about Iraq. So it was like, whoa. So then I move on to my second thing that I need to accomplish. I said, Abu Muhammad, I am so impressed with what you have done in close cooperation with the CIA. You have risked your life, but in the last couple of weeks, you have saved dozens of lives by the intelligence that you've provided. It's really incredible. And he stood there and he was looking at me like, you know what I've done? You followed the case? I'm like, yes, I followed this case. I am watching and I'm so impressed. And he's like, I could just see his eyes were like, his brain was trying to make sense of this conversation. And I achieved my second objective. What was that? That was, does anybody want to put in the chat section, what do you think in that moment I was achieving by praising Abu Muhammad and telling him what I thought of him? Credibility, yes, because I told him how much I knew about the case. So yeah, he can't pull one over on me. I'm showing him that I'm keyed in. What else? Respect, yes, absolutely. What I've achieved in that moment is by me telling Abu Muhammad what I think of him, I have taken myself from a complete disadvantage as a female, and I have raised myself up, and I've become something totally different. I've destabilized him because now he realizes that I am not some dumb broad. He is, and because I have complimented him, I have raised my stature without, so simply, something so subconsciously like that. I've brought myself up in his eyes, and he's down here and I'm up here. So I'm like creating a relationship of authority, which is really, really, really important. And then I have one more thing to achieve my objective before we start talking actual intel. Abu Muhammad, you know, I have been watching what's been going on in your neighborhood. I am very keenly aware of what's been going on in this part of Iraq. And I start telling him how the recent attacks, what they mean about Iraq's governing system and its larger cultural crisis and the sectarian fighting. And I basically wanted to sound really smart. And I wanted him to know that I understood Iraqi culture. And I got done talking about, you know, saying all these things about Iraqi culture. And he's like, he said to me, he goes, you know Iraq? And I said, yes, brother. I have spent a lot of time studying and trying to understand this country that you come from, which, side note, is fascinating. Iraqis under Saddam, with all of the issues with Saddam, which are so many, he had established such a good educational system that Iraqis in the Middle East were considered some of the most well-educated in the Arab world. And so they love to hear that. And, you know, I would always say, you're so well respected and you're so well educated and blah, blah, blah. Well, he just could not believe that I understood his case. I was following things. I appreciated him, and I was smart. I was so smart that I actually knew Iraqi culture. And in that moment, everything in the room changed. Everything. The tension that had existed earlier in that room, you could cut it with that you could have cut with a knife earlier, just melted. Because Abu Muhammad completely went upside down. And now he's like, not only does he like me and thinks he understands kind of what I am, but he really wants to work with me. So I've taken my disadvantages and I've completely turned them into my advantages now, because I'm a female, because I'm different, because I'm so outside of his normal. He wants to work harder than ever to help me and to prove to me he's a good source and to do his best and to impress me and the other people back at CIA. And it was a fascinating moment in not only in my career, but my whole life, because I realized that I'd been told for years I couldn't do this job. Not only could I do it, I was amazing at it. Not only, Iraq, I had thought was going to be this horrible experience, and it turned into one of the most transformative moments of my entire life. And I said, number one, I will no longer hold back. But I also realized what it takes to make a connection. And if I could make a connection with a terrorist like Abu Muhammad, I realized you can make a connection with just about anyone. And I realized the implications of that lesson for sales and marketing and business negotiations. And anytime you're dealing with another human being, your job is to figure out who they are and where they're coming from. Because if you can't speak their language, if you can't understand their assumptions about you or your company or the thing you represent, in my case, the evil CIA, if you don't understand those things, you can't challenge them. So you have to, it really, it cemented for me the value of doing your research and getting on the streets of Cairo to see a dowsha, to understand how people interact with each other. It really underscored for me the value of showing another person that you know something of their history or their culture, where they're coming from, whatever that is. And I always also tell people, don't mix up empathy and understanding with agreement, because obviously Abu Muhammad and I are still not on the same page on most things, right? But empathy and understanding is different than agreement. So you have to understand and empathize with someone else if you're going to fundamentally make a useful connection with them to move your objectives forward. So that for me was, again, a major turning point. And I realized the value of getting out of your comfort zone. And I was so far out of my comfort zone in a war zone, a place I never imagined working. And I really understood how doing something different can rewire your brain circuitry. And it can rewire the way you see things and the way you process them. And so with this story today, my hope is that it helps you see things like connections with other people in a new way through the CIA context with a terrorist source. You're probably not dealing with any terrorists, although some days you might feel that way, right? But in any case, that's our job, right? So on that note, I wanted to open it up to Q&A, and Jennifer, I guess you'll take that up.
Yes, thank you so much, Michelle. I mean, my gosh, what story. And I'm sure it's one of a million that you could tell.
Yes, lots of stories.
You have several different topics that you speak on, not just this one. What are some of the other insights you've gained that you have incorporated into your presentations?
So one is called How to Get Off the X, and that's using CIA ambush training that teaches you literally how to get off the X where you're being attacked to save your life, to how do you take steps to shake things up in your life and work, to get out of our normal comfort zones, to find that place of impact and meaning. And so I use the story of that training for that particular topic, ambush training. And another topic would be, for certain audiences, how to figure out your place in the world, because I think my road to the CIA was so difficult and so wrought with like, what am I doing and where am I supposed to be and what's supposed to happen, and so much rejection. And so I help people to recast rejection as what is often needed to get us to our place of purpose. So that's more a story of purpose and how to, withstand rejection and difficulties to get there.
Got it.
Mm-hmm.
And I read that you do one on how your training has helped you help others read people differently, which would be very helpful in an interview situation or a negotiation or anything like that.
Yes, if you're in HR, if you are dealing with employees on any level, it is so useful to learn the basics of reading body language. So you know if you're making that connection with another person. I mean, what was helpful with Abu Muhammad was being able to watch his eyes and his shoulders and his body and his gaze and everything involved in that, and to know that I was making that connection and it was actually going the way I thought it was. So that is also a really, really fun speaking topic for me.
I bet.
Yeah.
I bet. We do have some questions popping in here, so let me just read some of them. How did this job affect your relationship with your parents and those you had to keep secrets from?
So interestingly, the CIA lets you tell your family or the people in your family that you think can help keep that secret. And so in my case, part of some of my dad and stepmom knew, my mom didn't necessarily. It was hard for them because I was living in such dangerous places and they knew where I was. They knew that I worked for the CIA. And obviously that's really a challenge for parents. And for 10 years of being undercover, basically you miss a lot of life. And so I think the hardest part is it wears on you miss your family, you miss your friendships, and that's hard.
I bet. And how interesting though that you did all this with your husband, which has got to be a totally unique dynamic.
Indeed.
I love this question. Did you apply to the CIA or did they find you?
So when I was at Georgetown getting my master's degree, the CIA came and did an informational session. And I had a friend who said I should attend, and I was like, why? And he's like, well, I don't know, I think you might find it interesting. And I thought, well, I'm not CIA material. So I attended and sat in the back of the room and was very embarrassed to even be there. Like, who am I to think I might be CIA material? I'm like, no, I don't really think I am. And so what I applied through the Career Center at Georgetown, but to be fair, I literally applied for every single job opportunity. And the only one that came through was the CIA.
And that must be for a reason. You were definitely where you were needed.
Indeed, yes. It was not a mystery for me. What am I going to do? You have one option.
So did you ever feel like giving up, or did every negative give you more strength?
I wanted to give up all the time. I felt like all my friends are getting these great jobs. Why am I not getting a good job? What's wrong with me? And so, no, that was hard. That was a really hard portion of my life.
Do you think that then compelled you, or what did turn the switch to you saying, no, I'm going to do this and I'm going to prove them wrong?
Oh, so it's funny, once I did get into the CIA and it kept being told you can't, I was like, Jennifer, it's the funniest thing. I don't know if I can. I have no idea how to conduct surveillance, how to debrief a person for intelligence, how to know if someone's following me to my meeting, to identify. No, I don't know. But I was like, now you're making me want to be better than anybody else in my class. Like, you have lit a fire and now I'm determined to do the best job I can.
That's grit. That's great stuff. So we have one last question. It actually is about that training. So how long did you train and what was that like before you were sent out into the field?
So it's a year-long training, Tradecraft training course. You are learning the A to Z on how to recruit a source. Like, so how do you find them? How do you recruit them? How do you handle them? Meaning handle, that's the word we use for like, how do you hold a clandestine meeting and not get yourself killed and not get your source outed? How do you debrief him for intelligence? How do you tell if he's lying? How do you write an intel report? Because until you write it up, it's useless to the US government or the CIA. How do you shoot a Glock? How do you live through an ambush? All of these crazy things that you truly have no baseline in real life for. unless you're a bank robber and you've conducted surveillance on the bank, like, you don't know.
Wow. Yeah, that's not in the normal gen ed curriculum.
Not so much. No.
Well, I think you've left us all wanting more. So I am so excited that there is a book. We've got a comment here that they can't wait to read your book. So again, it's called Breaking Cover. And I understand from questions that I was asking before that that's one of the hardest approvals to get, is that you can't even write this book or share these
Yes.
stories with us. So we're so glad you had that grit. And
Thank
thank
you.
you for giving us your precious time today. As I said, I will send out an email follow up this week and include Diane's contact information. You can reach Michele through Diane and continue the conversation. And as you've heard, she's got millions of topics that she can make really applicable to any type of corporate or association environment. So again, Michele, thank you so much for being with us. All the people who are attending, thank you for giving us your precious time. And we look forward to having you back for the next Brain Break. Until then, be well.
Thank you, everyone.